Is a 1983 Datsun 720 pickup truck. This was the last year before this truck was changed a little bit. The 1984 wasn't a new truck, but some things were changed, including the name, which changed from Datsun to Nissan. As it was prior, the Datsun was made by Nissan. Datsun was the parent company, Nissan was the parent company, Datsun was the brand name. This was unlike most of the other Japanese makes. The parent company of the Toyota brand was Toyota. The parent company of the Honda brand was Honda. So why not Nissan? Well, Nissan made plenty of Japanese military equipment during World War II. So when Nissan decided to enter the American market decades later to sell cars, they cautiously took the brand name Datsun. After all, your grandpa didn't want to drive a car made by the same folks that made the tanks that had been shooting at him decades earlier. But by 1984, Nissan decided to shed the facade and let their US market cars wear the company name with pride. There were a few other changes for 1984 too, besides just the name. This was about halfway through the run of the 720 pickup truck, which sold from 1980 to 1986. To be completely clear, by the way, these changes sort of trickled out throughout the 83 and 84 model years. This truck's an early 1983 model. Nissan in those days had a habit of changing lots of little details halfway through model years and model runs, very unlike, say, Toyota. Anyways, those changes had the objective of making the truck look more masculine, look more American looking. They made the grille taller. They swapped the horizontal taillights for vertical ones. They got rid of the rolled bedsides and the little hooks, which I like. I use those. They also ditched the little fake plastic vents on the hood. Yeah, they're cheesy, but you know what? I like them anyways. A little bit of history on this particular specimen. In 2016, I dug this car out of my neighbor's backyard, where it had sat and not run since 2005. I moved into this house in 2015, and at that time, an elderly lady lived 2 doors down from me. She passed away several months after I moved here, leaving her family to dispose of a Dodge conversion van and this little pickup truck that had been abandoned a decade before in the backyard. It had been the old lady's late husband's truck, and she refused to let it go out of sentimental attachment. I approached the family as they were cleaning up the estate. They informed me that the junkyard had offered $75 for this little Datsun, which was just about on its way to be scrapped.
I just can't seem to get started. Don't have the heart to live in the fast lane. All that is past and gone.
I offered $100 for the truck, which they accepted, and at the time I thought it was crazy to spend a dime to buy this poor little truck. I never thought it'd run. It was in pretty sorry shape, but the Datsun wanted to live. After a little bit of wrenching on it, I could feel it. Anyways, it's got a 2.2-liter gas engine, it's a single overhead cam motor, and it's got 2 spark plugs per cylinder, which were meant to burn fuel more thoroughly to improve emissions. This was sort of still the formative years of emission controls, after all. And it does have a catalytic converter, by the way. It's called the Z22, the motor that is. The Z engine family was popular in lots of Datsun Nissan cars in the 80s. It is carbureted. The only other motor you could get this year was a 2.2-liter diesel. In prior years, the only engine offered was a 2-liter gas, and in later years, you could choose from a variety of different displacement engines. Again, Nissan liked to make all kinds of tweaks and changes over a model run back then.
Oh, and how's the power, by the way? How's it accelerate?
Slow and steady. Nothing out of the ordinary, really.
Options: 3, 4, 5 speeds. This truck came with the optional 5-speed manual transmission, which was an upgrade over the standard 4-speed manual. 3-speed automatic was offered too. Note about this transmission: it is unbelievably smooth shifting, not just for an old pickup truck, but for anything. This truck glides right into gear with no fuss, and it's so easy to shift. I can shift it with my pinky finger. Other options: this car came with the optional air conditioning, which has been converted to R134A, but it still runs great on the original compressor. The truck's got the King Cab, which was, and still is, Nissan's name for an extended cab. This truck does not have the optional 4-wheel drive or the optional power steering. I consider it odd to see air conditioning and an optional transmission upgrade, but no power steering. But that's a reflection of Nissan's style at the time, which was to offer options a la carte, as opposed to in packages, which is, you know, the Honda model. People will say that this truck's a bitch. No, it's not one of those overgrown 1500 cab trucks everyone tries these days. Loaded with TV screens and heated leather seats and other bullshit that I wouldn't want to risk breaking if I were using my truck as a truck, which most of those trucks aren't. This is a great truck, if you're not using it as a daily driver, and while I've driven it all over the southeast and it's perfectly reliable, it's rough and primitive and that will wear on you. Yeah, that's right, it's rough and primitive, like a truck a real man would drive. People will say that this truck's not a half-ton, quote-unquote, it's compact, and as a matter of fact, its payload is a tick over half a ton. I do buy landscaping supplies by the half-ton with this truck, rocks, topsoil, sand. This truck's still strong up to its rated payload. It's got a 7-foot bed. What this truck can't do much of is tow. It's rated to tow 2,000 pounds, and I wouldn't be thrilled to pull much more than that with it, personally. The factory rear bumper hitch is rated up to that full 2,000 pounds, so there would never have been any need for a frame-mounted hitch on this model. There's not a lot to this truck. The sheet metal is thin, the doors are thin, the glass is thin, it doesn't even weigh 3,000 pounds. The Z22 4-cylinder came with 86 horsepower from the factory, and how much of that it may have left is anyone's guess, but what little it is there is of high quality. The way the engine ticks along and revs willingly and playfully, the way the transmission happily glides into gear, it still feels solid and smooth on the highway at 75 miles an hour. The austere cabin still feels tight. I recently got out of a brand new $60,000 Ford Expedition back into this truck, and it felt like a Swiss timepiece. Basic as it may be, you get a sense that everything was precisely designed and built. Everything's bolted together well. It may be simple, but at least it's honest.
Just reach out and talk to your dear old Uncle Emery.